So, Carl, speaking of Obama, ever since the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office put together the Cold Case Posse, led by Commander Mike Zullo to, essentially do the work of Congress and the media to finally vet Barack Hussein Obama and look into the possible usurpation of the office of president.
Yeah.
We at the PNN Network, we have tried to keep people up to date, with the freshest info coming out of that really Herculean effort, because let's face it, folks, they are not investigating a high school teacher sexting his or her students here.
Right.
I mean, they're looking into the greatest fraud to hit American shores. And I happen to know that they have been hit with one legal hurdle after another, which, quite frankly, led them to cancel a press conference, which many were hoping would happen as early as March of last year. And now we learn that Mike Zullo and the team have been hit with what looks like to be, in my opinion, and we have evidence of this in the form of legal documents we have acquired, which we will publish tonight, evidence which looks like pedophagy from the judicial system against Zullo and his team. And now I understand that you have spoken to Mike Zullo today and are now going to give us an update. Is that correct, sir?
Well, that is correct. And explain to our listening audience what the term pedophagy means.
Pedophagy is wrongdoing on the part of the legal system, judges and lawyers, going after people, using their positions to bully people into either silence or steering the judicial system in a way that leads investigations away from their intended purpose. That kind of activity, that's what pedophagy means.
Right.
And that's really what I see happening here when I read the documents that people are going to be able to see for themselves tonight.
And I know you have read that document, and you guys are posting it over at PNN. As soon as this show is over, the show will be over at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and as soon as the clock hits 7 p.m., it's going to burst forth on the blog and all over the Facebook network and everywhere else, and it'll be up at carlgallups.com and other places, and people can read it for themselves. I'm going to quote from it here in a moment. Before we do, I'm going to get Sean, my producer, to play a little clip. It's about a minute. Leave my mic open if you would during that, Sean. And this clip comes from a program back in 2013 when Mike Zullo first used the term universe shattering. And I want you to hear some of the things he said there. It's about a minute. Listen to that, and then I'm going to get right into answering Mike Shoesmith's question.
Let me just ask you this. You do perceive of the time and the day coming when you will be able to come forward either on Freedom Friday or ppsimmons or somewhere, probably on Fox News, but you'll be able to come forward and say, this is what we've been talking about. Here it is. You perceive that day will come?
I think that day, and I pray that day will come, and I do believe it's going to come, and I am going to tell you, and you could take this show and play it in the future.
Yes, what we're doing.
That when this information is finally exposed to the public, it will be universe shattering.
Yeah.
This is beyond the pale of anything you could imagine.
Well, the little bit that I know completely rocked my world. And you've been telling me here lately that now there's more that puts that on steroids. So I'm anxiously looking forward to the day you can come out with it all. I am.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for playing that, Sean. And folks, I apologize for the quality of that audio. It's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy that I sent to Sean, and he did his best with it. But I wanted you to hear it back in 2013, here on Freedom Friday, is when Mike Zullo and I were talking, and he said that. He said, look, it's what we're dealing with now is universe shattering. Now, if you've been paying attention to Freedom Friday and PNN Network, you know that since then, it's gotten deeper and deeper and deeper, and to use Mike Zullo's terms, and darker and darker and darker, and more intense. Until finally, there was a Mike Shoesmith, you'll remember this, Mike Zullo was shooting for around March of 2014 for a conference.
That's right.
I think WorldNet Daily ran an article about it, quoted Mike Zullo.
Yes.
Mike was on Freedom Friday saying that. And he truly intended to do that from everything I know about it. But then came some massive legal hurdles, and folks, you you're looking in the face of one right now, and it's extremely complex. I'm going to give you an overview that'll give you a taste of it, and then you can read this document tonight and get even more understanding of it. Stay tuned to PNN and Freedom Friday, because we're going to take more and more time to unravel this stuff. It is extremely complex, and I'm going to go ahead and say, and dark and intense and deep. But because of these things happening, and now you're looking at one of them, this universe-shattering information in the conference has been postponed and delayed, and Mike Zullo actually came on Freedom Friday and said that, not, some many months ago. And I know people have been upset since then. Well, where's the conference? Where's the conference? But folks, listen, like Mike Shoesmith said a minute ago, I've got too many Mikes in my life. Like Mike Shoesmith said a minute ago, Mike Zullo has not been involved in a texting scandal. They are investigating the Obama fraud case. Okay?
Right.
The potential of deep fraud in the White House and involving various aspects of perhaps, government, et cetera, and various people. But here's the deal. So in the meantime, America is beginning to see how deep and dark and how intense this stuff has been going, because now, just some time back, and I don't know, I think it's been a couple months ago now, maybe more. My time is blurred to me on this, but Sheriff Arpaio winds up in a federal case in Arizona. Judge Snow, federal judge, hauls Arpaio into case, the Melendez case, I think it's called, Menendez case. And let me see, I'm going to get that correct here. Well, it's right here in this affidavit, but I can't find it, of course, now that I'm live on the air. Menendez, I think it's how it said. But anyway, that's not important. So Arpaio's involved in this case, and this comes from the Attorney General's office, some alleged mishandling of immigration laws and immigration, law enforcement, etc. And so that case begins to unravel, and Arpaio's in court, and he's, dealing with his attorneys and with the court. And then, here's what happens. The Judge Snow, brings in basically a conspiracy theory into the courtroom, fostered by the Arizona New Times, a newspaper article, and brings it into open court, launching his own investigation from the bench on an unsubstantiated claim in the Arizona New Times article from an unknown source who alleged that Sheriff Arpaio and his investigators had been involved in investigating Judge Snow because of something his wife said about Sheriff Arpaio. So that was all the stink, and that was the headlines of the news. But in the meantime, this federal judge who took the word of an unnamed source, who believed he was being investigated, brings this conspiracy theory into open court, ties up a federal court for months, spends buku-doodles of dollars, American taxpayer dollars, pulls in Mike Zullo, and I'm going to talk to you folks about that in just a moment, but only to learn that this alleged investigation of him and his wife never happened. It never happened, Mike Shoesmith.
Right.
And so Zullo was pulled in. So in the meantime, Zullo was hoping to go ahead and have this conference and get, and by the way, I've been assuring you, because Zullo's been assuring me, that the investigation's ongoing. They have more tentacles out, more feelers. They're collecting more information. More information has come in. There's the promise and hope of more information. And in the meantime, this thing erupts, and the judge pulls Mike Zullo in to this Arpaio case as a, quote, witness. But as he's brought into it as a witness, he's really being treated as a suspect. And then the judge literally threatens Mike Zullo with arrest as a potential suspect in an investigation that we find out never happened.
Right.
I mean, folks, it has gotten deep and dark. And listen, I'm going to say this. A lot of this is all about this birth certificate. I'm telling you, that's what that hasn't really come up in court too much, but think about this chain of events. You've got Zulo announcing on Freedom Friday and PNN and on various other places that, we've got this investigation. It's universe shattering. We've got information. We know what's happening. We know where it's coming from. We know what we know. We're getting ready to bring it. And then boom, legal hurdle. And then threats of dragging the sheriff into court. Then the sheriff goes into court. And it's all about this Menendez case. But then Zulo's subpoenaed. You need to come in. You're a witness. What, a witness of what? You were involved in this. No. And that you might be a suspect. Suspect for what? You may be involved in criminal activity. What criminal activity? And so then they bring him into court. And Mike Zullo knows his constitutional rights are being violated left and right. By the judge, by the court, Mike. And so, go ahead.
I think what they've done here is they've taken a court case dating back to 2007. It's a racial profiling case that they launched against Sheriff Joe Arpaio regarding this guy named Manuel de Jesus Ortega Melendrez. Yeah. And I think what they've done is they've taken this court case. It's the court case that never ends, it's been going on for 8 years now. And it never ends. I think they're using this racial profiling case suit against Arpaio as they've hijacked it in order to stall this investigation against the president. I really think that's what's going on.
Well, and other people are coming to that same conclusion. And of course, you and I can't prove that right here on the radio today. But listen, that's your learned opinion based upon everything that you have followed, and you've read this motion. And so the bottom line is, so many of you have been watching and following the news reporting that Mike Zullo has been drug into court as a witness, and he's taken the Fifth Amendment. Of course, the OBOTs, then went crazy and said, "Oh, look, he's guilty. We knew he was guilty. Listen, he's taken the Fifth Amendment. That means he's covering up something. He's hiding something." No, he wasn't. It was all about protecting his own constitutional rights. His part in this trumped up conspiracy theory that the judge apparently made up in the courtroom, Mike's part in that was unconnected. And so he's brought in as a witness and basically threatened by the judge, according to this motion, with the possibility of criminal violations and arrest. And then Mike said, "Oh, really? So you want me to testify as a witness, and then when I open my mouth, you're going to use what I say against me and bring criminal charges?" See, folks, that's why the Fifth Amendment was written. That kind of stuff went on in old Great Britain during the time of the colonies. And that's why our founding fathers said, you know what? You cannot be forced to testify against yourself in court and to say something that they could then use against you for criminal charges when they didn't even know that you had maybe done or said those things. And so Mike Zullo, I think, very appropriately took the Fifth Amendment. But anyway, here's the deal. Finally, Mike Zullo does speak, and he does testify. When we come back from the break, I'm going to tell you what happened concerning Mike Zullo's testimony and the transcripts of that testimony in court. But I want you to know that his testimony cleared up these accusations that the judge made, and his testimony spoke a lot about this confidential informant that they've been using, and a lot of massive information that came out in that. And when we come back from the break, I'm going to tell you more about that, and I'm going to read to you from this motion some of the allegations of this judge. I mean, it's going to blow your mind, folks. If they'll do this to investigators and sheriff's department employees and sheriffs and investigators, they can do it to you, and that's what you need to know. I talked with Mike twice today on the phone, and I've been talking to you about this motion. Let me just read a portion of it. I'm not going to bore you. I mean, you can read these whole things and all the legalese, and it would take a while. I just want you to get a taste of the opening filed by his attorney, Larry Klayman. It says, the appellant, Mike Zullo, is not a party to this case. Of course, that was the Melendrez case where he was called in. He says he's not a party to this case, but was nevertheless threatened by the appellees and by the presiding judge, the Honorable G. Murray Snow, with criminal prosecution while being called as a deposition witness and a trial witness in the case below, and while his documents, records, and information were seized by subpoena. See, it's about the birth certificate, folks. I'm telling you.
Right.
I'm telling you. And it goes on to say, after the plaintiff's appellees and Judge Snow's repeated suggestions and not so subtle request that criminal prosecution should be initiated to include criminal prosecution of Zullo, mentioning him explicitly by name, Zullo desired legal advice, counsel, and representation for his participation in the case. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I could go on and on, but it basically says, Zullo freaked out and said, look, you're calling me as a witness to something that I really don't even have a part in, and then you're telling me, now get up on the stand and testify, and as soon as you open your mouth and we hear something we don't like, we're going to put you under arrest. I mean, you can't do that in America, folks. That's why Mike Zullo kept saying, I take the fifth, I take the fifth, I take the fifth, I take the fifth. But finally, of course, we did get, he did get legal counsel, et cetera, and then he started talking, and here's what I want to say before we have to go, Mike Shoesmith. Mike Zullo, yes. He testifies. Watch this. The transcripts of his testimony are now part of court record. But they haven't been released to the public yet. Now, I imagine news media can get it. They'd have to pay to get it, a fee, which is standard. But pretty soon, whenever the judge says, I guess it'll be released to the public. But Zullo's testimony, the transcripts of that testimony are powerful. Because it clears up the case, it clears up these accusations of the judge against Arpaio and this conspiracy theory of some investigation that Arpaio supposedly had going. Zullo's testimony clears that up, but then it also reveals information about this confidential this confidential informant. And you got to remember the plaintiffs in this case. Who are the plaintiffs against Arpaio and now Zullo, since the judge threatened to arrest Zullo? It's the ACLU. It's the Department of Justice. And it's a D.C. law firm to which Eric Holder belongs. Do you guys smell that rat? And on top of all of that, just 2 days ago, Zullo's transcript, there was a link put up to it on the internet by an alleged OBOT, or at least a suspected OBOT, on one of those websites. There was a link put up to what hasn't even been released to the public yet, but yet the OBOTs had it.
How did that get out?
How did that get out? Yet now, of course, you try to find that link and it's gone, because once it was exposed, boom, they snatched it down. So here's the thing. Shame on the mainstream media. Where's the media? This is
media malpractice.
This is not universe shattering. This is earth shattering, but the universe shattering stuff. See, people who've been waiting. I said several weeks ago, Mike. I said, maybe it's good that this is happening, because now stuff is getting out in official records. Mike Zullo is being made to say stuff, and it's being put in record. The problem is our stinking media won't do their job. Pull Mike Zullo's official federal court testimony. Go through it. Reveal to the world about this information. Reveal to the world about this judge trumping up a conspiracy theory charge in court. This is amazing stuff, folks. Like I said, if they can do it to these guys, they can do it to you, and you ought to be afraid.
Journalism is the only business in America protected by the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment guarantees freedom of the press.
Right.
And so, they're protected by the Constitution. They have the right to go after this. Why are they not? These talking heads, these guys tell you, PNN Network, that's where it's at. That's where it's happening.
That's right.
That's where the real stories are being told.
And I'll tell you why they're not going after it. Number one, it doesn't fit their talking points. Number two, they've been calling us names for years, and every time Mike Zullo is now under testimony and testifying, and this information is given by Sheriff Arpaio and Mike Zullo under oath in a federal court, it exonerates Mike Zullo and myself and you and PNN and everybody else. And of course that doesn't fit the talking points of the media, because they've been calling us conspiracy theorists for years.
Right.
But as it turns out, the judge is a conspiracy theorist, and that's been proven in court now, apparently.
Right.
Now,